Good morning. This lesson is from our Integrated 1 class. This is going to be our second lesson on solving equations. But before I get started, I want to say I hope everyone is doing okay out there. So let me just go over the goals for today. The goals are going to be pretty simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to review sign rules for multiplication and division. And I also am going to add a couple other rules. Hidden numbers, negative signs and fractions, addition rules and subtraction rules. I want you guys to write all of this down on a separate piece of paper. We're going to start creating a cheat sheet. And again, I've mentioned in our Zoom meetings that I don't like to test on memorization. I like to test on application. I don't punish for forgetting, I reward for recognizing. And so I want you to take a blank piece of paper that you're always going to have access to. Put it in the front of your notebook or something, but we're going to start adding formulas and steps and rules to it with the intention of using it if we forget something. So in my math class, as I teach, I don't want you to say I forget. You're not allowed to say you forget, because you are going to have on this cheat sheet every resource you need to answer any question that I throw at you. And so this is our first addition that we're going to put to our cheat sheet. So let me just go ahead and fill in a couple of things real quick. The first thing I'm going to work on is multiplication rules. A positive times a positive is a positive. Well, the markers go good. Let me find a pen that works. Okay, here we go. Well, I don't know if it works, I just found a pen. So a positive times a positive is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a negative, that is a positive. Okay. So again, we're going to need these rules to solve our one-step multiplication and division equations. So this is why we're reviewing it. Division rules: a positive divided by a positive, that is a positive. A positive divided by a negative, that is a negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So those are going to be the basic rules. There's a couple other things I want to add to this cheat sheet that I think are good to add at the beginning of the school year. The next thing is going to be hidden numbers. Now, as you're writing your cheat sheet, I would do what I have, where I write the concept and I underline it. Some students I've seen have actually boxed in concepts, and so that way they would know, for example, that these are my division rules, these are my multiplication rules, and this would be my negative sign and fraction rules, which has a negative sign in front of a fraction. And what we can do is we can either put the negative sign with the numerator, or we can put it with the denominator. I'm going to recommend that if we have a negative sign in a fraction, either the negatives out in front or the negatives down below, just put it up top. The negative sign doesn't go to both, right? Because if we say a negative over a negative, that actually becomes a positive. So if there's a negative out front of a fraction, we put it up top or we put it down below. But I'm going to say go with this guy. Always turn it into that guy. It's going to make your life a little easier. Hidden numbers. There's 2 hidden numbers right now. We'll add more to this, so maybe give yourself some space. But just the variable x is 1x. And negative x is negative 1x. So if you see this, you have this. If you see this, you have this. You don't really need this yet. this we'll need for this new lesson. And then the last thing I want to have you guys add to the cheat sheet is the addition rule and the subtraction rule. This is a fancy mathematical way to describe what we talked about in terms of money, right? So if I have the same sign, we're going to sum is addition, right? Same sign, sum, keep the common sign. So if you have $3 and you have $7, those are both positive, so 3 plus 7 would be 10, you would have $10. Or on the other side, if you owe $5 and you owe $3, owing 5 and owing 3 are both negative, and that's the same sign, so we're going to add those together, so you'd actually owe 8, and that's us keeping the common sign, right? So that's just a quick example of the addition rule. The subtraction rule, if the signs are opposite, you subtract, you keep the sign of the larger number, right? So if you have $5 but you owe 3, those are opposite signs. Having 5 is positive, owing 3 is negative. So we would subtract 5 minus 3 is 2, and we're going to keep that as a positive 2 because you had $5, which was more than owing 3. If you owe $8 and you have $6, owing 8 is negative, having 6 is positive. Here we have opposite sign, subtract. So that means that you're going to be left with a 2 with the 8 and the 6. And because you owed 8, and that was a larger number, we're going to keep that sign. So negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. So I'm going to get out of the way, take a screenshot of this. I want all of this written on your cheat sheet. I want you to write on your cheat sheet as small as you can so you can still read it, but we're going to be adding a lot of steps and rules to this cheat sheet. And again, this is meant to help you. Okay. When as a teacher, when the administration or the school district wants me to learn a new process, they give me a cheat sheet that tells me steps and rules and what symbols mean. And so if I get to learn like that, you guys get to learn like that. So please write this down. And I'm going to check off, we are done with goal 1. Goal 1 is done. That's not a very good check. That's more like a V. There we go. All right, so we're going to continue now. We've accomplished our first goal. We reviewed the rules for multiplication and division. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about solving one-step multiplication and division equations. I left up the multiplication and division rules because these are important to know during these when solving these problems. And so, here's our second goal. I wrote a little guiding statement to help us with solving one-step equations. We're going to use the opposite operation to solve. And so the thing that I find that math students struggle with is that we struggle with knowing what the problem's telling us. And so maybe if we can look at clues in what we know, multiplication rules and division rules, maybe we can figure out what we have and then use the opposite. Remember, multiplication and division, these are opposites. All right, so the first equation is 3x equals negative 12. To me, it looks more like this than like this because I do not have a fraction. So example 1, this is a multiplication equation, so that means that I need to use division. All right, so this equation is multiplication. We need to use division to solve. I'm going to draw the symbol, use division to solve. All right, and so all that we need to do to solve a one-step equation is we divide everybody by the number attached to the x. So since 3 is attached to the x, we're going to divide both sides by 3. All right, my 3's are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with, let's see here. Now I'm dividing, and I actually have this specific rule. I have negative 12 divided by positive 3. Negative 12 divided by positive 3 is going to be negative 4. Okay. That's it. So when you're dividing to solve, you need to pay attention to which of these four situations you have, and then just make sure you've got the right side. Okay, so that would be us solving a one-step multiplication problem. To be honest, I'm not interested in teaching this class with large numbers. I'm more interested in having you focus on the concepts rather than the calculations. So I'm going to try my best to keep the numbers smaller. Example 2, this is a division equation. X is being divided by 2, and that's equal to 10. And since it's a division equation, we're going to need to use multiplication. Now, before I continue any farther, I know from experience that students do not like fractions in equations. I hope that through this approach in solving equations, you're going to realize that the fractions are really a big deal. They're really not. Alright, so here I have the division equation because, again, look, I've got a fraction, and that means that I have division. So what we need to do is we're going to use the opposite of division, so we're going to use multiplication to solve. And it's really easy to solve a division equation. We just multiply everybody by the denominator, okay? So multiply everyone, I hope this is on the recording, everyone by the denominator. All right, let me double check and make sure this is all on the screen, and it is. Wonderful. So my denominator here is 2. I need to multiply everybody in this equation by 2. This is one number, this is one number. So I'm going to multiply everybody by a 2. I'm going to put a 2 right here. I'll put parentheses around it. And I'm going to put a 2 right here. All right. Now, what happens when we multiply both sides in a division problem is we're creating an opportunity to cancel the fraction. So these cancel. They're gone. And we're going to be left with x is equal to, I got a positive 10 and a positive 2. So positive times a positive is going to give me a positive, so I'm going to be left with x is equal to 20. So that's how we're going to solve one-step division equations. We're going to multiply everyone by the denominator. So if I was to just create another example, I don't know, we'll say -4 is equal to x over 5. All we're going to do is we're going to follow this step. We're going to multiply everybody by 5. So each side's going to get a 5. You get a 5. And you get a 5. Now remember, we're multiplying. This isn't subtracting. I probably should have written it on the other side, and I will write it on the other side. So it's going to be 4 times 5. -4 times 5. These cancel. I'm left with x is equal to a negative times a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. So -4 times 5 is going to be -20. So that is us solving one-step multiplication and division equations. So this is what you're going to be asked to do today. All right, that's it. So I hope that that makes sense to you guys, and have a good day. I'll be seeing you later.